Authentication, and this, by the way, is true for almost all the security measures that I will mention here, is disabled by default. Okay, so when you naively install a Scylla cluster according to the documentation, it's come with almost zero security feature enabled. And as a product manager, that's my responsibility and my fault, if you will. But we choose knowingly, and the same goes for other databases, to make the first installation or evaluation very easy, but it's also non-secured. So all of the security measures I'm going to mention here, you do need to enable them manually. Okay, and authentication included. Authentication is basically like any other authentication on your database or other system, forcing the user to authenticate itself with a login and a password. And once you do that, you can later activate authorization and define which user can do what. But the first phase of that is forcing the user to authenticate itself. Now, if you already have a running production cluster without authentication, it's not great, but you can fix it. The problem that if you just activate or enable authentication, all of your current application will just stop working because none of them is using authentication. So, of course, authentication is something that should enable in the driver and the database, but it's hard to do it exactly in the same time. So Scylla, following Apache Cassandra, have what is called traditional authenticator. So if you're starting with no authentication, you can enable this transitional authenticator. This gives you time to use or not use authentication from your driver. You can then go to your application, enable authentication on application on the driver one by one. And once you do that, you can go back to the Scylla cluster and move from a transitional authenticator to password authenticator in each of the nodes. Of course, each of these changes require you to do configuration change and then enroll in restart of all the nodes. But with this method, you can move from non-authenticated to authenticated without downtime. Okay, so it's a pretty important feature, but the best, of course, if you move into production, enable authentication from scratch, and that's true for other security measures.